Okay. I know we have people who are still joining us, but we have such an exciting program today. I'm going to get started. And welcome, everyone. I'm Jan Bray. I'm the CEO of the Coalition for Career Development Center. And we're thrilled to see so many people joining us on the Career Readiness engagement policy forums. This is the first one that we are doing. There will be 5. And the purposes we're really going to be focusing in on what do we mean by each of the 5 pillars. The coalition was created when it started its early discussions, went into and identified 5 key pillars to making career readiness the foundation for all education. And so these forums, and as I said, we're going to do a series of them, are a way to begin to do a deep dive into it. But in order to make sure that we're doing things that the way they should be done, that we're maximizing everybody's expertise, their experience, the vision, the innovation, we really have been able to hold together a broad cross-section of people to provide input. So this is a way that we're going to start digging down into each of the pillars. And so to start us off with today's program, it's my pleasure to call upon and introduce Leo Reddy, who's the chair of the Coalition for Career Development Center. Leo has had the vision and the passion behind the issue, as well as the creation of the coalition. And so we are thrilled to have him really begin to introduce the series of the policy forums and set the groundwork for what we're planning to do. So Leo, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Jan, and I share your excitement with the opening of this policy forums series. We've been talking about it for some time, but it's an opportunity for us to kind of outline in somewhat greater detail the specific solutions for the problems we're identifying, the challenges we've identified for career readiness. And we look forward to your feedback also on this. We'll take that feedback into account, and we'll be putting out subsequent policy papers which draw upon these policy forums and so forth. So it's a very exciting process for all of us. Let me just kick off by setting a little context here in terms of the especially let's have the next slide, in terms of the rationale behind what we're doing. If I think most of you are familiar with our 2019 white paper called Career Readiness for All. That's a lengthy paper. It has a lot of data in it. And but in pouring through data, my favorite one really is this short quote from our friend Jan Bray, who just heard from. I think in terms of numbers and data, what could be more compelling than this? A reminder that 99% of all students must find work when they leave school. And our whole purpose is to try to facilitate that process. So when they leave school, they'll be going directly into the work that they've chosen, they're well prepared for, and they'll have high levels of job satisfaction and productivity. And that's kind of the overall arching theme here. But just to pick up a few figures, we're not quite there yet. Just a reminder that although over half of our students enter college, that only 35% receive degrees. And there's a lot of time wasted and so forth in that whole process. And 40% of all college students drop out before they finish. I think the third data point is one that tells the story quite well too, that according to a well-known Strata Gallup survey published in January 2018, nearly 80% of college students enter college believing it'll prepare them for the world of work, but less than a third leave college believing so. So there's a definite gap there that we're trying to address. In terms of the impact on the economy, only 33% of employees are engaged in their jobs, according to a Gallup survey, because they love their work and strive to improve their organizations. But 51% are not engaged, or 16% are actively disengaged. I'm not sure if that's the ideal kind of workforce that we're looking for. I know from the industry perspective, that's not what we're looking for. And of course, a reminder of household debt. We frequently cite the figure that the average student owes about $38,000 in debt, but it's more than just the student. This is a reminder that the household also. There are also family members who are kicking in funds to support students. So This is perhaps even a more meaningful number, I think, according to the Nerd Wallet report, that the average U.S. household with student debt is $57,000. So these are some of the challenges that we're trying to address in our whole purpose and vision, which we could look at next. Spencer, the next slide, if you have it there. So what we're all about here in the center is to really facilitate the vision we've had for a long time of making career readiness for all learners, to emphasize all, the first priority of American education. We believe that providing all learners with high quality career development services and technology will help ensure they secure productive employment and their chosen career pathways as effectively and efficiently as possible. That's kind of our overall overarching vision. Now, to get there, maybe we go to the next. So how do you really accomplish that? Well, we have a solutions framework, which we've defined in our white paper and have worked through in various summits in Washington involving a good cross-section of different populations. But number one is prioritizing career planning. That's kind of our first pillar. And you'll hear more about that today. The second is to provide professional career advising to help students to develop their career plans and to make sure they're well aware of the market information, they're realistic in what they're looking for, and so forth. And third is to emphasize work-based learning, whether that's an apprenticeship or a mentorship or an industry certification or whatever, some form of work-based learning, and provide high-quality development technology. There are many apps out there that help people with career searching. And then ensure accountability. And accountability means also holding schools more and more responsible for the outcome, for the placement of their students. That's happening now in new federal programs and begin to emphasize that responsibility of the school. So those are powerful pillars. And if we get those all working well together, we'll be able to establish our kind of the paradigm, if you will, for our students, which I want to remind you of in our next slide, Scott, if you wouldn't mind. So how does this affect the individual student as he works his way from the time they enter school to the time he or she leaves? One, of course, is to an elementary school to expand career awareness in different ways, company visits by companies, what have you, visiting the places where your parents work. The second is to develop a personalized career and academic plan focused on self-exploration and career exploration to get a better feel for what you think you might like to do. But then in grades 9 and 10, to kind of formalize that plan into a more well-defined pathway. So begin to make selections. And so by grade 11, you'll have chosen at least a preliminary career pathway, and you'll have a summer internship in that student's pathway. What we're working very hard on here also is to have employers step up, employers who badly need higher skilled people and so forth, and help to fund this process, help to fund these summer internships. That's especially important for low-income students who would have a hard time just taking the summer off without having an income. So we're working quite hard on that dimension. But the bottom line is that when the student leaves high school, basically, they either begin employment in their chosen career pathway, which is fine. If that's what you need to do to be well prepared, you're well enough prepared in high school, you're ready to work, that's fine, that's an excellent outcome. Or secure a high quality industry certification or degree in the student's career pathway. But again, the bottom line is whatever you choose for your career pathway, you're ready to start that pathway when you leave school, whenever your education is over. We think if we can fulfill that concept, that dream, that really would do an immense amount of benefit for the country in every possible dimension. So that's our overall vision and our 5-pillar plan. And we're going to be hearing more about that first one today. And I'm very happy to introduce Scott Solberg from Boston University, who's an eminent authority on individual learning plans. He is the guru in this space and a highly experienced person who's also the VP for research for our center. So Scott, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. Leo and Jan and everyone, just great leadership, Leo, you've had through this whole Coalition for Career Development Center that we've got going, and Jan as well, and want to thank you for letting me be part of this journey. What I want to do is we're going to have a conversation with Natalie Clark from Kansas. And we're going to start with a student to look at what do we mean by this whole personal career and academic plan? What does it look like on the ground? And trying to help students be the lead for us so we keep them in our mind front and center. And Natalie, I know you're on. If you can give a little context, I'm going to share my screen with this little video. And then after we're done showing the video, Natalie's going to take us on a journey for the ways in which Kansas has really done some pretty remarkable work in this area of career planning, because they're integrating so many of the key elements of work-based learning and social emotional learning and all kinds of things. And so we thought it would be exciting for them to just kind of share how a state is organizing some of these policies. And then we've got some others that are going to be commenting and adding some other perspectives when Natalie's finished. So Natalie, so great to have you on. There you go.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, and if you want to just give a little context, and then I'll hit the go button on this, and we'll take just a 2-minute kind of review of hearing from a student.
Very good. So in Kansas, the individual plan of study is required for every student in at least middle school through 12th grade. So every accredited high school in Kansas, middle school also, every student must have an individual plan of study. Districts apply for recognition for the high quality individual plan of study processes in the districts. And the State Board of Education asks that we have 2 districts come and present to them their process, as well as.
And so in the next slide, you're going to hear from.
Whoop, sorry.
No, this is one of the students that presented to the State Board of Education. And that district had earned STAR recognition for their high quality individual plan of study. So enjoy.
All right, we're ready for me now. Sorry about that. Press the button and everything went. All right, let's hear from your student. This is great.
Hello, my name is Readiness, and I'm a current senior at Piper High School. I started my IPS, or individual plan of study journey, in 7th grade. Ever since then, I've been taking different career clusters, career paths to really find out where I fit in. I thought I would fit into the health/medical field, but I quickly discovered that that is not where my strengths lie, but instead that they lie in the more business and journalism aspect. I'm super thankful that I had the opportunity to learn that now in high school, instead of wasting my money by switching majors going into college and being unhappy there. So now I have an idea of what I want to do for my major and my future job career, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. One way that we get to find out about different jobs is through our Zello program, and they put job descriptions, and we take different surveys/tests about ourselves to really figure out what jobs would fit best with our personalities or what we're looking for. Zello also has electronic portfolios where we can just keep everything organized, so it's easy for me to look through my growth throughout the 4 years and what steps I need to take next in order to complete my career cluster or just to be prepared for college. One thing that Piper is really starting to introduce is real-world experience. So we are going to start academies, which will get us connected to more job opportunities, and it'll really help us understand the job field and the career that we want to go into. And if that's not the field for us, at least we know now in high school/middle school that we can switch before going again into college and having to switch majors and everything. So I couldn't be more thankful for our IPS and our career clusters, as they really gave me a new opportunity to look into what I want to do. And thank you for listening.
So that was a time of celebration. The superintendent, the individual plan of study coordinator, and then they got to hear from the students, our State Board of Education. So it's very rewarding to see this come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll share my screen, and Scott, let me know if all looks well.
All looks good. Might hit the presentation mode. And then also remind, we always have to remind everyone that you're calling it individualized plan of study. That's the Kansas name. And this personalized career and academic plan goes by many names around the country. So It is what we're talking about, but you have your particular name is the individual plan of studies. I just wanted to make sure we knew that. But I will go on mute. So take it away, Natalie.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Solberg, and thank you for having Kansas today. We've been working really hard on the Kansas Individual Plan of Study and work-based learning and how those work-based learning experiences can help inform the individual plan of study. Our vision in Kansas leads the world in the success of each student. And to make sure that we are measuring each of the 5 board outcome areas, these are the metrics that schools report to us on: social and emotional growth, kindergarten readiness, the individual plan of study, graduation rates, and post-secondary completion. So as you could see on Zoe's slide, she had those minimum components of what the IPS must include. So making sure that they are understanding their strengths and their interests to identify their preferences, those course builders based upon those interests, and a post-secondary plan, no matter what they plan to do following high school, and a portable electronic portfolio that details their journey and helps districts determine if there's any gaps in that process. So as we said, the vision requires every middle and high school student in Kansas have an IPS, and it is part of the accreditation process. We released the Individual Plan of Study Digital Reference Guide this most recent summer. We have an Individual Plan of Study professional learning network in Kansas. It is regionally based. It has a trainer that we've worked with. Last year we had 10 trainers. This year we have 7 trainers. And it's out of the service centers as well as the Kansas State Department of Education. It's where people can come together and learn what other districts are doing, share those scope and sequence, and come together for support. We plan to update this digital document at least once a year. So it has the links that were used last year, and it'll be used by our trainers in training this year. This is what it looks like. Employability skills, the importance of having students be able to demonstrate those in a real world setting is something we know it's very important, and showing artifacts of demonstration within their portfolios. And you can see along the right, and I have this PowerPoint linked to all of these demonstrations. It talks about the vision and how IPS is one of those board outcomes. It talks about our school counseling program, career development, career advising, making sure that they're introduced to the fields, clusters, and pathways, social and emotional learning, which we have crosswalked with our employability skills, the IPS framework and how important it is to have a team, family engagement, work-based learning, and credentials and certifications. So this is how our resource is set up. And on each page, we have applicable resources that we have determined will be helpful for those in the IPS role. We talked a little bit about the Kansans CanStar recognition program. We've had 2 application periods where districts can apply to be recognized. Again, Piper was one of those gold level districts, and we recognize those. The commissioner recognizes them for their outstanding work that they have done in those qualitative measures, such as the IPS. Something we have found that's really important for students is work-based learning. We have a Governors Council on Education, and among that council, we have a subcommittee that's work-based learning and market value assets. So they have endorsed the Kansas Work-Based Learning Continuum. This first bullet on the top, increasing individualization as students connect their interests, skills, and goals with careers, is indicative of our individual plan of study, but thinking how important it is pre-kindergarten through graduation to have these experiences to help students, to help with their individual plan of study, and have those experiences that will allow them to demonstrate employability and technical skills. And then noting how important it is for career and technical student organizations and the opportunities students have to demonstrate those skills also. So thinking about career awareness in elementary, learning about work, we ask that our schools determine that each student has been introduced or made aware of the 7 career fields. And here in the middle, we have our career success, for these 3 different areas that reflect the U.S. Department of Education employability skills recommendations. And then at middle school, career exploration, making sure that middle school students have these different opportunities in the 16 career clusters. Again, making sure in the middle, in Kansas, our Kansas flower is the sunflower, which is why we have the sunflower model. Some of you may have noticed the yellow brick road, thinking of the Wizard of Oz, but making sure students have opportunities to have hands-on projects or learning at work, being able to connect with business and industry in their communities. And we feel that if those awareness and exploration experiences happen early, more students will have high quality career preparation experiences, internships, youth registered apprenticeships, those simulated work-based experiences, entrepreneurial experiences, and service learning. So how important it is to make sure that they get to try on the different pathways based upon their interests and their passions. So we have had in operation a work-based learning cross-agency regional network or pilot since January of 2020. And the Governors Education Council has endorsed, and we report back to them, our pilot. This particular pilot is broken up into our 5 workforce regions in Kansas. Our governor wanted to make sure that no matter where your zip code is, students have access to high quality work-based learning. We're engaging the different agencies. For example, in Region 1, it has 135 of our 286 districts in Kansas. We have a Kansas Education Program Consultant, which is myself, who gets the opportunity to work with these districts. We have the Kansas Department of Commerce, who provides a work-based learning intermediary out of the workforce centers or the local workforce boards. And then we have our Kansas Board of Regents that provides a community or technical partner to make sure that educators have professional developments and are made aware of the programs and equipment, as well as experiences for students. And the Kansas Department of Labor, they have been a partner to make sure our labor market information is user-friendly for educators, students, and families. And this is a list of the different districts that we're working with. We have been working with the districts such as Hugoton. We're in our 3rd school year since January of 2020. Phase 2, we brought in 3 additional districts. And then just this school year, we brought in at least 2 or 3 districts in each region. Because as you know, in Kansas, the Kansas City area, Region 3, represents 12 school districts. And their needs in business and industry are much different than in Region 1 that has 135 of the 286 districts. So we were asked by Commerce to develop a personalized learning plan, and also our auditors to make sure that we're having high quality experiences for students. So we developed digital fillable forms to make sure students and educators and families developed a plan for what technical skills the students would demonstrate, as well as employability skills. We also developed a work-based learning digital reference guide, and we have already updated this a couple of times, but we have training. We're having a training next week in Wichita, Kansas. We have about 200 people signed up for our training, and we're having our commissioner speak, Department of Education representatives, as well as representatives from all of the agencies that are partnering. We hope that this will make all districts aware, not just our pilot districts, but all districts, to know the resources that will be of support to them in their individual regions. And this is what it looks like when you get inside. You can see we have the definition of work-based learning in Kansas, the continuum, and we have links to more information. And again, there's different sections that that you can go to. It's not meant to be sequential, but if we have districts ask certain information or certain questions, we can refer them to certain sections. This is the labor market information that the Kansas Department of Labor has created for us. I asked if they could show us, this is an example in local area 1, looking just at business management administration. So it's sortable by cluster and pathway. And if it's deemed high wage in Kansas, it's a darker shade of blue and has a check mark, which all of these do. But as you know, within all of our pathways, it's our responsibility to introduce students to occupations, let them know what are the openings now, in 2 years and long term, what type of education is needed or work experience, and then what the wages are. So we're asking that educators share this with their students and their families as well. We talked a little bit about the Kansas City area, and the Kauffman Foundation has a real world learning initiative, and they're working with 30 superintendents as well as business and industry to ask that each student in those particular districts, both on the Kansas and the Missouri side, graduate with not only a high school diploma, but a market value asset. And when we think about what is a market value asset, it's those high quality work-based learning experiences that could include an internship or a client-based project where that student is completing a real world project for a client, a business and industry partner, facilitated by the teacher, an industry recognized credential. And the business and industry in the Kansas City area have agreed upon with the educators what industry recognized credentials have market value asset in that region. And college credit, they have agreed upon 9+ hours because their research and Prep KC has shown that's the tipping point for students to go on and have success. And then a high quality entrepreneurial experience where students actually write a business plan and then carry out that business. So their goal, and they have all agreed, superintendents and business and industry, that by 2030, all students across that region will graduate with a market value asset and diploma, preparing them for future work and learning. And when I ask Olathe, which is one of the partnering districts, how they're keeping track of that for each student, they're using the specializations in Zello to do so. So when we got thinking about our individual plan of study, and I'm saying that my battery's getting low, so you might have to excuse me for just a minute if I lose. But thinking about how important it is for students to have a high quality work-based learning experience and those market value assets that will lead to what we would consider an indicator of career success when they're in high school before they go on. So it's been something that we've really been talking about in Kansas and the Kauffman Foundation specifically. So thinking about if our students do graduate with a market value asset, that they are able to show a readiness indicator before they leave and go on and graduate from high school. So this is our definition of a successful high school graduate in Kansas. And we honestly feel that with the individual plan of study that we have in place for each student and work-based learning, that students will meet this definition or profile of a successful high school graduate. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If you hear a little bit of background noise, you may know I'm traveling along the interstate because part of my job is to work directly with schools. And I ran into a bridge that was out, so I had to take a detour. So I will pose questions, or Dr. Solberg, if you have any questions, please ask away.
All right. Well, thank you, Natalie. I know it's a little commotion and it's always hard. And our state leaders, as you can tell, are working really hard on behalf of our schools. And there's a perfect example. So Natalie, thank you. You just went through a whirlwind of amazing materials. We continue to be jealous. You have a lot of people not happy with those amazing graphics that you're able to produce out of Kansas continuously. It's beautiful. It's well connected. Really exciting. And we're going to have some conversation now. We're going off the PowerPoint now. It's going to be some conversation. I first want to, Paul, I want to bring you in first. Paul Perkins, president of Amatrol. And we thought you saw so much around this that's around the business engagement and workforce development. And I want you to comment on that, but I want everyone to know that your background in this work is you're actually, and I've had a chance to work with some of your team now personally, and it's fantastic to see how you're helping bring business and industry to work more closely with colleges, with high schools, universities, to really design the kind of technical learning skills needed to produce, you know, all kinds of skill sets across a wide range of areas. In my case, it was the really looking at manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, but it gave me a real sense of, in talking with, how much connection there needs to be with our districts and schools. So I'm just curious, Paul, if you could just give some ideas about how what you're seeing in what Kansas is doing, what your response is, and what some of the positive things that might be going on, and maybe some questions or challenges in terms of bringing this type of work to scale.
Well, thank you, Scott, and it's a pleasure to be with you guys today. And work-based learning, individual plans of study, I think, are just so critical. I had the benefit growing up with my father being an engineer and a machine designer, and he always had a shop, and he was doing things, and it really spurred my interest at an early age to go into engineering and manufacturing. And I was a co-op student while I was going through college and engineering, and so I had the opportunity to develop some of those skills. And so I've always been really passionate about the need for everybody to be exposed to those types of experiences, no matter what field they're going into. And I think Natalie did just a beautiful job giving an overview of how I think a really well-coordinated plan needs to be put together. You know, you need to have career awareness, career exploration, and career preparation that are a part of every individual learning plan or plan of study. And industry can help with that. They can help in all three areas. And I don't think that we have to leave it for education to, you know, to carry that on their shoulders by themselves. And I can tell you that companies are incredibly interested in participating in this effort right now, more than they've ever been in history. And I remember when I first started in the world of career and technical education over 40 years ago, and it was a little bit of a stretch sometimes. Industry was often busy and education was off doing their thing, and they didn't really see that much of a need to you know, have a high level of engagement in the education process for industry. The industry felt that was education's job, and today that's totally turned around. And I think partly because there's a need out there. There aren't enough people to fill all these jobs that people companies are looking for, and they are recognizing that while they have a short-term need, especially now during the last couple of years, but even after things settle out, this problem is going to be persistent unless they start working at earlier ages and helping students get a better idea of where they could go in their career. And I think in industries like manufacturing, they recognize that they've got to get involved with education and with students at an early age, or they're not going to change the long-term trajectory of the number of people that are coming in. So the one big message I would have for all the educators on the call today is don't be hesitant to reach out to your industry. Don't feel like you've got to, find somebody that just sees this as a passion for them. But I think you're going to find that everybody out there in industry is interested in helping in education, and I think they're willing to come to schools and to provide speakers and to do videos of their area. I do believe that the more that we make it local, the better off we're going to be. If students can see what a company is doing down the street, in fact, oftentimes they have no clue all the cool things that are going on in their own backyard. They see a video of a company 3 states away doing something, and it just doesn't feel personal to them. And I think we've got to bring in experiences in the school that become personal, family members, people working in these plants, pictures. And then we've got to get students immersed in it, because it's one thing to see it and it's another thing to do it. And people, I think, to choose a career, they're looking for a lot of different things. They want something that they're going to be passionate about, and they also want to do something that they know that they're going to be good at. And so until they immerse themselves in it in some type of hands-on experience, I don't think that they really know the answers to both of those questions. And so one of the things that we started doing actually a number of years ago was running a summer camp for free for our local community. And it's for students who are transitioning from 8th to 9th grade. And we would have them for 2 weeks, and we called it a robotics camp. And the draw was to get them to come to our company and be in an area in the plant where they would be working with robots. But what we blended into it was a whole series of experiences around getting to see what different people do in different jobs. And as a manufacturer, we've got people in marketing, accounting, engineering, manufacturing. And it was really interesting that through the 2 weeks, the students would go and spend a little time with different people and find out what their experiences were. And I think that type of immersive experience, in some cases, the students said, wow, this is what I wanted. I want to be an engineer, or I want to be a CNC machinist. In other cases, they decided this isn't for me and I don't want to. I thought Zoe really nailed it when she said, you want to figure out what you don't want to do and not waste time doing it. So another level of that we've encouraged at our company is summer internships. And a lot of people have the impression that that's a drag on companies. Almost all of our internships, they're usually about 6 to 10 weeks, depending on how long the student can engage. They've always been productive for us. We start out and we've got to teach them something, but through the summer, by the time they're done, they've done more work for us than we've paid them for. And I think that and they're always paid internships, but I think that's something that needs more. And then finally, having the opportunity to do an apprenticeship, of course, companies recognize that that's one of the best ways to get people into their company long term, is to get them started very early on. But I will say that one of the challenges that industry has, and they do with all these things, is they are so busy right now that they really need education's help in organizing it. And so if education organizations can help put it together for them, industry, I think, is extremely interested in helping execute. But sometimes they are stretched, especially in a small to medium-sized company, to have the administrative help that they need to actually run it. But I think
I think I'm going to transition over here to Amanda in just a second from our American School Counseling Association, but just wanted to really put a pin on that last thought. I know we're about to do a work-based panel in the coming future, I think next month-ish. I don't have the exact date, Spencer, in my head, but this could be a really important part of that conversation, is thinking through, if business is going to come, and this has been Leo's big dream as well, and you've been doing it with industry providing the funding for those internships, what is it that the district and the community can do to help make that happen? And so coming up with an understanding of that shared set of responsibilities could be a really nice conversation. And thank you, Spencer, right on cue. Wednesday, November 10th will be the next one. So we're still forming that, and I think this might be a really good segue into that. But I wanted to give some time. Amanda Fitzgerald from the American School Counseling Association, we're so excited to have you on there because, and I'm sure as you're watching and this, the role school counselors need to be playing in all of this. We're seeing from the national model that you've all been putting out for so many years, a real emphasis on leadership and becoming change agents. So I'm just curious to hear, as you're seeing what's happening in Kansas, the exciting ways in which school counseling can really make this happen and really provide the support. A lot of this work, as you know, is all school, but it takes leadership with school counselors to really drive that process forward. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it from the School Counseling Association perspective.
Thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Fitzgerald with the American School Counselor Association. I actually see a handful of our state leaders who coordinate the school counseling efforts for your states in the audience. So it's nice to see some friendly names because almost everyone has their camera off. But yeah, I think that Kansas has an excellent model. Hi, Nicole. I think that I'm going to echo a couple things that Paul mentioned. What the coordinated effort in terms of and at the Department of Education to take the lead in this effort is so important. So we know that that new initiatives are happening all the time, and when they're forced onto the school system, it looks like one more thing. However, the way that this has unfolded with all of the language used and all the effort to put the added resources in. And I really want to stress stakeholder engagement to have all of the important people at the table to really get this implemented appropriately. So I've seen a number of other states have also, and you all put it in the chat, all of your ECAPs and ISPs and whatever they're called in your state that are mandated starting in middle school. But are they being done, and to what degree, and are they being done well? So having, I think the rollout and strategic implementation is very, very important. And I think you need the school counselors at the table to talk about what their capacity is. I think you need to have the conversation about how, if your school or district is fortunate enough to have the added resources of career specialists or post-secondary other folks that fit, how they all fit together to align this work so it's all done looking at what the end result should be, instead of silos and everybody talking around the problem instead of working together to really implement appropriately. So I will say, I always have to put in a plug that we're in a resource shortage in schools. So while we know the industries and businesses are looking for more connections into the school system, we're coming off of a pandemic. We do have an unprecedented amount of federal relief funds being pumped into schools, but we have people talking about learning loss, and college applications and readiness is down in terms of just sheer numbers. We have a mental health crisis. And we have more people leaving K-12 education than we ever had before. So we have a lack of resources already before the pandemic. And now we have a real resource shortage. Do we have qualified people in the schools? What are the ratios? What is the capacity of the folks that you already have in the schools? And are they spending their time doing things like appropriate counseling duties versus inappropriate counseling duties? So I know we're short on time, so I'll leave it at that. But I'm very grateful to have been invited here, and it's very nice to see all of the folks that are working together to align these efforts.
I'm on mute. Thank you, Amanda. It's a team sport. And as you're saying, with the kind of the COVID and the coming back, we have a lot of students without a sense of hope. And I think the one thing that often gets lost is that when students find future, when they find a sense of purpose, that hope can come back. And so I really think that if they are, given those limits, as you said, if they're being asked to do tasks that are not going to be focused on helping youth really get back in the game and really see a future potential for themselves, we're going to continue missing out. And school counselors are certainly a big role in that, as well as, Paul, thank you, the leadership that we need from our business community, because again, hope, as you said, you took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say, our youth need to see their future in their backyard. And that's exactly what you were describing too, that when businesses open up and say, look what's possible for you right here, it gives another sense of hope as well. And we need that right now. Our youth are looking around and saying, they've lost so much, what can I gain support-wise, as well as a sense of future-wise as we go along. So I want to thank my panelists, and I want to thank you, Natalie. That was awesome. Great work in Kansas. Really excited to see it coming together and a model that everyone can borrow and use. We'll get the PowerPoints out, and we'll get the resource list out as well. And I think we're just it's a really good start to our panel and into our forum. So thank you all again. I'm going to turn it back over to Jan, who's going to get ready with our next group. You're on mute though.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I got to get t-shirts or a hat that says you're on mute, or can you hear me now? Because that's what we all say these days. I think the kids would buy it. But first of all, thank you, Scott. Wonderful panel. Natalie, Paul, Amanda, really good comments, good input. Amanda, I loved your comment about the need for alignment of how do we fit it all together, so that we look at the end result, what we're looking for, the end goal, rather than the silos of what everybody's doing. And so I think that's really important. So thank you all very much. if for many of you who have been following the work of the center, there is a state career development leaders network that they meet regularly once a month, and they share information, they talk about issues. And I think that's one of the goals of the coalition, is to really convene. It's to get these dialogues going, to learn from each other, to break down some of those walls and those silos, as Amanda so well put, and that, so that we can really find what we are trying to do and find the way forward and the answers and the directions and the strategies. That's the word I was looking for. Strategies to make this forward, to reach our vision of career readiness for all. So great way to start off the policy forum. So thank you all very much. And we're going to build on this with our next panel, which is really around, so there's a lot that's happening, as we've heard what Kansas is doing. We've heard the support, the involvement, and the interest of industry. And Paul, I know Amatrol is doing a lot in this area. So how do we make this happen in the policy environment at a local, state, or federal level? Or even how do we engage the public sector in all of this? So the next panel is going to look and begin to talk, to explore, is how do we bring all of the other entities in and make sure that we are facilitating, so that we're breaking down those barriers. We're breaking down all those walls that are stopping us from achieving the goals that we want. And so we're very fortunate today. We have a very interesting, a really exciting panel. I'm very pleased with it. It's my pleasure to introduce the moderator of that panel, someone I've known for a long time. I think probably everybody on this Zoom call knows, and that's Ron Painter, who is the CEO of the National Association of Workforce Boards. And let me just say, when the coalition started, it is really about career readiness from all. And I always say cradle to grave. It might be a little difficult at each end, but career readiness begins. We have people coming in at all different levels. So Ron, I'm going to turn this over to you to introduce the panel and get your discussion going. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jan. And I appreciate that. And I really do hope that there's career guidance for those of us who aren't starting our career, but are somewhere along the journey of our career. I think if you have a question, like, keep it to yourself, right? Or no. I'm sorry. No, put it in the chat. Put it in the chat if you have a question for our panelists. Sorry, sort of got confused there. Hey, we do have a good panel, and I want to get right to them. I'm going to introduce them, and then I'm going to ask them to tell you a little bit about their work at their respective organizations. So let me just first of all shout out to Amanda Winters, who joins us from the National Governors Association, Julie Lammers, who is Vice President, Government Relations and Advocacy at the American Student Assistance, Orrin White, who is the Director of College and Career Services for United Way Delaware, and Lisa Schumacher, who is the Director of Education Strategies for McDonald's. That was sort of an audition, Lisa. I hope you took it that way. I'm going to kick it off. Amanda, talk about your work at NGA.
Yeah, sure. So excited to be on this panel with everybody today. So my name is Amanda Winters. I am Program Director for Postsecondary Education at the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices. So the center part of NGA is the technical assistance and consultative arm of the National Governors Association, and we have the great privilege of helping governors' offices dive into policy areas that help meet their priorities and help them figure out how to get their state where they want it to be. I've had the great pleasure in the past of working with Natalie directly on work-based learning issues in Kansas. And so I always love to hear from her. She is a dynamo. So that's just an example of the great people we get to work with as a part of supporting governors' priorities, and certainly around lifelong learning and around skill development, especially during the pandemic. We're working very deeply with governors' offices around helping their state be better prepared to meet the current needs that have emerged during the pandemic, but then also to think about shifting workforces as the nature of work continues to change and evolve, and helping to meet them to meet these new challenges. And career readiness, digging back into our K-12 systems and extending that through serving adults and serving mid-career adults and under-resourced communities. There's a lot of connection points here for Governor's priorities. So I'm very excited to be a part of the panel and to be a part of these voices who bring all these different perspectives to this issue. You're on mute, Ron.
I got to happen all the time, right? Julie, the American Student Assistance. Tell us a little bit about the organization and your work there.
Great, thanks so much, Ron. I'm Julie Lammers from American Student Assistance, and we are a national nonprofit that focuses on college and career readiness issues, really primarily trying to put more attention on how we provide these services and support systems to students starting as early as middle school, really trying to push the conversation about college readiness, college and career readiness back into the middle school years. We do that in a number of ways through some informal learning channels where we provide programming directly to kids, mainly through social media. And we also do quite a bit of advocacy work, primarily trying to focus on policies that engage and allow for expansion of middle school career exploration and high school work-based learning, and then support transitions to post-secondary education and career. So that is American Student Assistance.
So Julie, your advocacy work is more at the federal level, or you have folks who are out there at the state level as well?
Both federal and state. A lot of this work is done at the state level, although federal government these days could be providing significant funding to do some of those efforts. It is really the states that get it done. So we do it at both levels.
Cool. And talking about states, Orrin White, talk to us about, I think most of us probably know United Way. Talk about what you're doing in Delaware.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ron. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm a part of this esteemed audience, and also good afternoon to my fellow panelists. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. At the United Way of Delaware, we know that an opportunity exists for some, but not for all. We believe that too many children live in poverty and too many families live in crisis. We fight to maximize community resources and improve the quality of life for all Delawareans. United Way of Delaware amplifies individual, corporate, and partner resources to drive change through collective impact. We focus our work on three key strategic areas, which are grade level reading, financial empowerment and racial equity, and also college and career success. We partner with education, government, business, community-based and civic leaders throughout the state, working together closely to ensure that all public school students in Delaware have access to a world-class education that prepares them for future success. Now, there have been notable successes, specifically over the last several years. Delaware has grown its career pathways effort from 27 to over 20,000 students and have become a leader and a national blueprint for youth and workforce development. Young people have a comprehensive, permeable, and clear set of career pathways, with employers serving as co-owners of talent development. What this has done is translated to 500 plus employees being engaged, with a growing IT industry council bolstering 30 companies with the capacity to upskill over 700 individuals. However, United Way of Delaware still acknowledges gaps in equitable access to pathways for all students and the need for critical support for these career development opportunities. This has shaped a policy focus on building additional capacity, starting career awareness introduction earlier in a young person's life, and exploring research supporting middle and high school youth to become future ready as a catalyst for change. This also includes increasing equitable access for students in pathways, including increased career awareness and opportunities for non-traditional and disenfranchised populations, increasing student overall career awareness and the pathways that lead to post-secondary college or career opportunities, and also providing support for building a system that links career planning from the middle to high school and beyond. Finally, the pressing focus is evidenced by Governor Carney's most recent announcement of a $50 million public-private investment in workforce development and the rollout for a new phase of career career pathways, which will include a multifaceted plan for expansion of the work into middle schools, broadening the reach to more high school students, and doubling the number of employers that are engaged in offering critical work-based learning opportunities to continue to strengthen Delaware's future workforce and economy while providing students and families with the tools and skills that they need to succeed, promoting career development and readiness, and translating that into future practice and policy. Good afternoon, everyone.
Great to have you with us, Orrin. Thanks. And now from industry, from, I guess, live from Chicago. I think that's where you might be, Lisa. It's great to have you join me and join us. I do have to acknowledge I am thrilled. Lisa is a board member for the National Association of Workforce Boards. So Lisa, talk about your work at McDonald's, and you guys have really done a lot of exploration as a company in this topic.
Yeah, thank you, Ron, and good afternoon, everybody from very rainy, thundery Chicago. So I'm sure everyone on the call is familiar with who McDonald's is, but I just wanted to provide just some numbers just to put us in context. So we have about 14,000 restaurants across the United States. Most of those restaurants are owned by our franchisees. We have about 2,000 independent franchisees. About 850,000 people work in McDonald's restaurants across the country, and we hire about 1 million people a year. So I think what's maybe going to be interesting for everybody is when I listen to Julie and Orrin talk, we're doing some similar work at McDonald's. You know, we talk about, I don't know how many of you saw a commercial we ran a couple of years ago about being committed to being America's best first job. You know, there are a lot of companies that think about creating pipelines within their companies. And although we certainly think that way, right, we have a career pathway, a 60-year-old career pathway within our restaurants and outside the restaurants. But we also think about the fact that we are a first job for many. And a pretty high percentage of the folks that work in our restaurants are between 16 and 24 years old. So again, we are a first job for many people, a place where people come to learn really key work readiness skills, customer service, getting along with customers, getting along with difficult customers, getting along with your coworkers, showing up for work on time, showing up in the right uniform, all of those key soft skills, work readiness skills, power skills, all the other terminology we use for those critical skills. But we're also thinking about how do we help them along their journey? How do we help them along their career pathway? Again, whether that's within the McDonald's system, which for some it will be, but for many it will be outside the system. And so in 2015, we launched something that we call Archways to Opportunity, which is basically our overarching education strategy. And we did it in a way that is intended to meet people at their point of need, really believing that education is a game changer for folks, especially many of the folks that are employed at McDonald's restaurants. And we want to be part of that journey. And so we looked at where do people who work at McDonald's restaurants fall along the education spectrum, and again, tried to create something that met them at their point of need. And so under that Archways umbrella, we have an English as a second language program that we call English Under the Arches. We have a high school completion program. So we work with an accredited online high school district, a program that was created specifically for working age adults who previously dropped out of high school to complete their high school diploma. It's not a GED, it is a diploma program that comes with a career coach as part of that, as part of the tuition for that. We have a focus on college completion, really around accessibility and affordability. And so probably the most popular thing that sits under the Archways umbrella is our tuition assistance program. So anybody working in a McDonald's restaurant for just 90 days and working an average of 15 hours a week has access to $2,500 in tuition assistance dollars at any accredited institution across the country in any degree program. Additionally, we offer career and academic advising. So we work with CALE, the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning, and their master's level prepared advisors. And again, anyone working in any McDonald's restaurant, including their family members, have access to those advising services. And then last year we launched something that we could call Archways to Careers, which is a career navigation app that basically in the palm of a crew member's hand gives them the ability to see what are the skills they're learning at McDonald's and how are those transferable, not only within the McDonald's system, but into other industries like tech and healthcare and the finance industry, and also into the trades. We wanted to be able to give people line of sight into what those careers look like, and again, how are the skills that they're learning at McDonald's transferable into those other industries. We've touched about 65,000 folks and given away about $130 million in tuition assistance, and I would say we're not done. We're continuing to move the needle forward, continuing to think about new ways that we can help folks navigate their education journey. Certainly excited to be part of the NAW board and learn a lot from the workforce system. Partner hopefully in many ways with the workforce system, given that we have 14,000 restaurants across the country and a pretty large workforce. I think there's some really great opportunities there for us to continue to, again, do some good work.
Awesome. Again, thanks, Lisa, for joining us. I want to come back, and I'm going to ask Amanda, Julie, and Orrin, and then I'm gonna come back to Lisa. Let's talk about the role of business and industry in this whole notion of career counseling, career advising. Orrin, what's the engagement? I mean, we think about Delaware; it's a small place, almost like everybody's got to know everybody. What do you see as that role for business, and what's your experience in that engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought we had a really incredible prep call where one of my colleagues, Amanda, made a really great point about the role that industry has to lead the way with parents. And until industry makes parents comfortable with the fact that, yes, I will be comfortable with something other than a bachelor's degree and hiring your child, and also willing to hire your child as a high school intern because it's a valuable way to build a pipeline. I thought that was incredible. I think parents default to the path that they desire for their children, and sometimes that they're often closed-minded to a different direction. There's this preconceived notion that a four-year path is the only pathway to success. So really, until industry helps to shift that paradigm, you will see that parents will struggle to really get on board. But there's a larger issue at play here. There's a disconnect between education and the economy, and that in itself has created a skills shortage. And we know that there's a really excellent report from Gallup that talks about the number and the percentage of employees that are disengaged, 16% being actively disengaged, over 51% being completely not engaged. And we believe that this is an indictment on prioritizing career development from a national perspective. So we are focused intently on that concept of all that we hear from the Coalition of Career Development, really focusing on all students having the opportunity, regardless of their race, their color, their creed, or their background. Or for us, more specifically, there's been a zip code. In 2016, United Way of Delaware really reframed the state in what is known as 8 promise communities, which represents 8 areas or 17 zip codes specifically, where our children are dealing with impoverished communities, lack of educational resources, and it's really impeding their progress to get access and opportunities to pathways at the next level. So we are working intently with our in-school partners as well as with our after-school and out-of-school partners to create that additional capacity to, again, start earlier with our young people, start having those critical conversations around career awareness, career immersion, and career exploration, so that ensuring that all youth have that opportunity to connect into critical work-based learning opportunities, where they're engaging in practicums, where they're engaging in these experiences that we know are ultimately going to be beneficial to seeing more youth successfully transitioning from the secondary and then to the post-secondary, but with a specific focus on a majority of public school students. But also there are huge gaps in academic achievement and economic opportunity commensurate to those in the Black, Hispanic, and Native community. So it's really a focus for United Way of Delaware to ensure that concept of all, and seeing all students building those critical academic, technical, and work-based learning skills that we know are going to translate at the next level.
Julie, you said you're working in the middle school. What's your sense of the role that business does play with your work, or should play?
Yeah, I think it's critically important, and I echo everything that Orrin said. But I think we're at a stage where we're to some degree more hopeful that business will play this role. I think there are some significant policy barriers that we see to allow business to be fully participating. I was at a great event in Delaware last week and had a good conversation about this exact issue, that business is talking quite a bit about these concerns about a pipeline, but are not always engaged in the solution. And so I think we see a lot of things, whether it be certain states that have relaxed issues around liability in the workplace for work-based learning participation, or have increased access to transportation between school and an employer site, or providing tax credits and grants for businesses to be more engaged. There's a lot more that policy levers that we can be pulling to incent business participation in both the middle school space and in sort of career exploration, job shadowing opportunities, site visits, that type of activity that is a little bit easier to facilitate, to the more in-depth pre-apprenticeships, on-site apprenticeships, paid apprenticeships that are so critical in order to ensure kids can really experience the workforce. Those things, there's still a long way to go to increase the opportunities available on the employer side. I think there's a lot of good pockets of excellence, but some significant work we need to do to make sure that those experiences are not just available to a small group of kids, but really available to all. And that pipeline of potential opportunity is still fairly narrow when we look at what great work is being done, but a lot more to really ensure that every kid can experience something like that.
Cool. We're going to come back to that issue of policy, because I'm gonna ask you all like some missing ingredients. Amanda, from NGA standpoint, I know that we're involved with you guys on a number of projects. You guys do a lot of conversation with a lot of players. What's your opinion about what's the role of business in this conversation?
Yeah, I'll throw in a nuance for the business conversation. Small and medium-sized businesses are critical for us to engage as folks who are thinking about state policy. So again, folks like McDonald's can lead the way and provide that example of ways in which to upskill and engage and support their folks. But if we can't get that example translated into what small and medium-sized businesses can do, we'll lose that momentum at the state level for the types of opportunities that exist for full business engagement. And I think the nuance to this is that this is a very regional conversation. So states can set the stage for these conversations to happen. They can really provide the opportunity for alignment of investment and systems and stakeholder engagement. When it comes right down to it, those relationships at the regional level are the ones that are going to drive real connections, real opportunities for students. Throw it back to the comments from Kansas around regional employers identifying the credentials that really had market value for them. That is not a 30,000-foot decision. This is a decision that we need to hear back from local and regional employers. So I do really think that one of the challenges for state work around business engagement is figuring out how to translate some of the big 30,000-foot ideas into really workable solutions for small and medium-sized businesses, and to figure out how to sort of streamline the feedback loop. I think this is a thing we hear from a lot of folks, a lot of people wanting to talk to industry and getting their feedback from all of our different systems, our K-12 system, our workforce system, our higher ed systems, all want to hear from the industry partners, and then we're all asking them these different questions at different times. So figuring out how to really maximize the impact of the voice from regional employers, and figure out how that translates into the work that we can do in state policy. So I would just throw that in there as sort of that, the challenge of state policy is really thinking regionally and thinking about some of the smaller and medium-sized businesses and how to support them in making this a focus for them.
And Amanda, this is kind of a tough issue for governors, right? Because every poll I have ever seen says we all think that education is a local issue. I want to be in charge of my kids' education, and yet, come election day, we point at the governor about the health of our state, like, jobs coming into our state and how our state's doing. So this is really a tough issue for governors to navigate.
Yeah. certainly the issue of local control, but then also sort of state incentivization and support of this work is a delicate balance. And in some states, it's more stark than others because it's just, different policy environments around education and around post-secondary education, around workforce opportunities, around where is the growth opportunity. I will say our current chair, Governor Hutchinson of Arkansas, has focused his chair's initiative on computer science education for K-12 students. It's been an emphasis for Governor Hutchinson throughout his tenure as governor, but he really makes those connections between preparing these students as best as we possibly can for the jobs of the future, exposing them to the systems of logic that come with computer science, even if they don't go into this area, connecting them to employers and project-based learning, all the things that Julie and that Orrin were talking about around sort of the what are ways in which to engage students and to get parents on board. So I do think that governors are thinking about what are those unique things that can be brought to the table at the state level that can then support and elevate the work that's happening at a local level. What are those value add pieces? For Governor Hutchinson, it's certainly computer science education. And in other states, they're adopting similar areas of focus and trying to think what are those foundational elements that we can provide as districts make these localized decisions around connecting to their regional workforce needs.
Thanks. Lisa, there's about 160 odd million people in this country who are in the labor force, and probably, I don't know, 140 some million of them are going to go to work today and they're going to get paid by employers. So no pressure in speaking on behalf of the millions of employers who employ those people. How do you see, what has McDonald learned about your role in career readiness?
Yeah, I mean, I think that entry-level employers, whether that's us or Walmart or Starbucks or others, I think we play a big role in career readiness. I think, and Ron, you've probably heard me say this before, we've sort of lost sight a bit in this country of the importance of a first job. I mean, everybody think back to your first job. You learned a lot in that first job, and believe it or not, you're still using some of those skills today, right? And so I think reframing that first job, because there's a lot that comes with it, but reframing that first job is a critical step in learning work readiness skills. I mean, certainly there's a role for training organizations and education, both K through 12 and higher ed to play. But the place that you really learn those work readiness skills is while working. And so again, I think
not so successfully, right? So some people get let go from that first job.
Yeah, they learn what not to do, right? If you come in every day 10 minutes late, which is going to be my soon to be 16-year-old son, I'm sure, you're not going to be in that job much longer. So I think it's the reframing of that first job. I also, in hearing Orrin and Julie and Amanda talk, right, that bringing the employer to the table. I think sometimes when we're talking about career pathways, that entry-level employer is oftentimes left out of that conversation. And I think including that entry-level employer in that conversation is really critical because, the way I think about it, and I'm not sure 100% of our franchisees would agree with me, but the way I think about it is that, McDonald's restaurant employees should really be seen as a potential talent pool for other jobs in that community or other jobs in that region. The ability I jumped in as Paul was talking about his summer camp, which sounded really cool, by the way, to expose kids who work at McDonald's, and some of them aren't necessarily kids, they might be older, but exposing them to what other jobs exist in the community. Many of them aren't surrounded by a network of people that have jobs that they aspire to, right? So I want to work in a hospital. Well, all I can be in a hospital is a doctor or nurse. Well, guess what? You can be lots of things in a hospital. Let's teach them what it means to be a radiology tech, for example, that doesn't require a 4-year degree. What does that job look like? What does that job pay? What's the training I need? What's the experience I need? And what are the skills I'm learning at McDonald's are transferable into a role like a radiology tech? So I really do think that that is a key role that especially large entry level employers can play. But, I think it was Amanda that made the point about the small and mid-sized companies. How do we help them sort of navigate this world also, which is typically why I agree to talk about this. Anybody who asks, right, Ron?
You guys are a willing partner and appreciated. Lisa, I'm going to ask you sort of a two-part question, and this isn't meant to like point the finger, because I'm going to ask Orrin, Amanda, and Julie to follow up. But you mentioned earlier, you're 2,000 franchisees. So if I'm looking at McDonald's and you're doing this work, I'm assuming you're McDonald's, and wherever I go, this is going to be the attitude. What have you learned about what it takes for a large corporation like McDonald's to do this with that many franchises? And then what do you need community groups like the United Way and like Julie's group? What kind of support do you need from them?
Yeah, so let me first of all say that, the work that we've been doing for the last 6+ years, we could not have done without partners. Primarily the work we've done with Kale, with our college partners, with our high school partner. We're not the experts in that space. Some days I claim to be the expert on how McDonald's works, but I usually get kind of knocked down from that. That is still on a regular basis. But I think it's, from an employer perspective, and certainly a franchise organization has a whole nother layer of complexity to it. Right. I can't just put out an edict or a communication that goes to every single person in the organization from entry level on up that says, here's what we're doing. If you want to access tuition assistance, here's how you do it. I have to rely on those 2,000 or so franchisees to push that message down, which again adds a layer of complexity to it. However, I think the benefit that we gain with that far outweighs the challenges, because those franchisees are so invested, obviously, in the success of their business and the success of the individuals that work for them, that we have this sort of layer of coaching and support, cheerleader, if you will, really encouraging their crew, their managers to pursue their dreams, right? To really help them dig in, help provide the support, help provide the flexibility that they need to pursue their education. I mean, I'll tell just a really, really quick story. When we first launched Archways and we had our first high school graduate, right? My team and I were over the moon. Like, this is exciting. Let's put her picture everywhere. 2 months later, we find out she left her McDonald's, her franchise-owned McDonald's restaurant. So then I was in a panic, right? This is going to become the story. If we let them get their high school diplomas or their college degrees, they're going to leave McDonald's.
They're going to leave.
So I nervously picked up the phone, called the franchisee, and he said, "Lisa, I am thrilled. She's worked for me for 6 years. Her dream has always been to work in a child care center. She couldn't do that without her high school diploma. She got her high school diploma. We had a party for her, a graduation and a going away party for her. She is a brand advocate and will for life be a brand advocate. She brings her kids in a couple times a week to eat here. She tells everybody in the neighborhood McDonald's changed her life. I couldn't be more happy for this situation and for her." And that, I think that is the sentiment across our organization.
Too cool. I'm gonna come back, Orrin, and then Julie, if you want to jump in. What are the key partners like to do that transition from sort of the corporate, the C-suite, to say, hey, we want to do this? And I know you guys work as we do with local workforce boards. You're working with the plant manager. You're working in your communities. What kind of partnerships, Orrin, are really critical for you at the local level?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Ron. And I think it kind of underscores some of my opening comments, where we're really partnering with education, government, business, but most importantly, community-based organizations. I also have a really short story, kind of consistent with some of the great feedback that Lisa gave, but it really talks about kind of the current issues that we're dealing with. We know that our country and the world has been ravaged by COVID-19, and in March 2020, Governor Carney had to make the difficult decision of closing schools to really flatten the curve. Really, in that instance, school was thrown online, and if you understand, inequities have always existed in the space of education before. Impoverished communities and their communities of color, that inequities have looked far more exasperated, and you layer that on top of COVID, and it risks really exasperating an already long and wide learning, achievement, and opportunity gap. But really, our community-based organizations were able to step in and assist our young people with getting access to safe and supervised connectivity to their education, providing them with critical wraparound supports, giving them opportunities to continue their education, leveraging the work of these community-based organizations. So I think it really plays that role in prioritizing career planning to really increase career readiness, which is going to be critical to improving post-secondary readiness. And we believe that our community-based organizations can play a great role in ensuring that career awareness doesn't begin no later than middle school, and really focusing on ensuring that children are developing and maintaining personal career and academic plans that really align to their career and life goals, and also to their academic post-secondary and their career pathways. We think it's working with these partners to focus more efforts on creating opportunities for children and youth to explore and ultimately create their own career and life goals, and to make informed decisions that really have the impact to matter to their own lives. So we think it starts with support, helping young people have customized services and a network of supportive relationships, both in the in-school, the out-of-school, and the after-school, that meet their needs and promote a healthy transition to adulthood. We think that these partners provide opportunity because young people should be provided with an array of life opportunities that promote optimal growth and development. And this includes opportunities for experiential learning and healthy risk-taking and more participation in normal everyday activities. But we also know that there's a cultural barrier here as well, Ron, that our community-based and our after-school partners play. Students need to feel comfortable in their own skin and know about themselves. They should be able to hold critical conversations with anyone, not just their friends or their peers, but their adults. Really what we're saying is that the most successful college students, the excellent networkers, were those who were taught at a very young age to engage with adults, friends, or parents of friends and things of that example. But I think it's also a focus back to the concept of life skills, leveraging the opportunity to build these skills and competencies such as dependability, adaptability, critical thinking, decision-making, customer focus, and teamwork. It really goes back to where Lisa really talked about your first job and how those skills are transferable. They're going to translate to wherever that young person decides to go from a career perspective. And it gives me an opportunity to talk about the great work that we're undergirding with Dr. Solberg. We're working with the Higher Education Office out of the Delaware Department of Education to really focus on a paradigm shift and a new framework for career development that is focused on partnering with districts for career development, focused on teaching skills that all students need to set long-term goals and experience secondary success, really leveraging the student success plan as is indicated in Delaware, but nationally recognized as individual learning plans. So essentially what this is doing is helping students to identify their interests and create their own pathways using resources in school or the use of community organizations to increase the capacity to support students, providing access to opportunities in an equitable manner.
Julie, I'm gonna ask you, like, who do you see as the critical partners in this? And then a question from your standpoint. Orrin, like Lisa, has sort of franchise. The United Way funds a lot of different organizations. How critical is that role of that convener or that instigator in the community to bring all this together?
Yeah, actually, that was what I was going to say was one of the critical partners. I agree with Orrin that after-school providers, out-of-school time providers are critically important, particularly in helping develop strong mentorship relationships, to help kids build social capital and understand how to navigate a career. That those are resources that that schools just don't have the capacity most of the time to provide. So how can we ensure that kids have those critical work-based mentorships? Really, really important. But also, in order to ensure that employers are actively engaged, an intermediate of some kind is really, really critical. And we've seen that in a number of states that do this well. Delaware does it well with their work-based learning office. The state of Rhode Island does it fairly well. Washington State does it really well. Providing opportunities or an entity that will take some of the burden off of industry to coordinate what the opportunities are, how we link them to schools, who is communicating back and forth, who owns that communications infrastructure to ensure that everyone knows where to go, how to apply for an opportunity or what is available. Those intermediaries are critically important, whether it is a nonprofit provider like United Way or a state-based entity that's created with that sole purpose in mind to coordinate the infrastructure. And I know, Amanda can probably speak to this better than anyone. NGA has been wonderful at the sort of best practices around what these intermediaries can and should look like. They're very different depending on the state. Some are very centralized, some are very regional, but they have an enormous ability to help schools and employers facilitate a very complicated process. And I think that no matter what it looks like, those intermediaries are critical in this process if we're to expand and really scale career connected learning.
Amanda, that does bring me back to you, and I realize I'm starting to borrow some of Jan Bray's times, but Amanda, is there a gap between federal and state policy, and is there one big part of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always hesitant to say that there's a gap places. I think it's just connections that we're not making as clearly as we should. I think there are a lot more opportunities that we could leverage to move some of this work forward. And I would also see it across a spectrum. So certainly a lot of times we talk about career readiness. We're talking about traditional age students within a K-12 system, working through those processes to hopefully get college and career success. But I think when we're thinking about the state and federal connection, we have to certainly focus in, Ron, on the workforce system and the ways in which it serves adult students, adult basic education pathways, pathways that are trying to engage communities who are under-resourced or disconnected from opportunities, and disconnected youth, people who are English as a second language, all of these kinds of opportunities across state and federal initiatives and funding. I think the opportunity for alignment around an understanding of career readiness that includes not only the K-12 system and preparation of traditional age students, but also stretches over into upskilling, reskilling, opportunity access for adults, and supports for those folks to be able to achieve that success, knowing that as you move into adulthood, we all get bogged down on the boringness that is being an adult and having to pay all your bills and take care of yourself, and that's the worst most of the time. But really figuring out how to help folks balance this and still move into a career readiness posture, even if they're not in the K-12 system. So I do think that opportunities exist across a variety of federal programs and state implementation of those programs that can really weave together a state's understanding of what career readiness is across a continuum of workers and learners, that can make all of this a little bit easier to do if we connect that language together, those definitions together, the understanding of credentialing and understanding of the ways in which to serve lifelong learning as a goal of a part of this. So I would just throw in, I think, rather than saying a gap, I would say there's opportunities to connect in ways we haven't before, to make sure that career readiness really does speak to all, not only the diverse communities in traditional age K-12 students, but also those who have exited the K-12 system or disconnected from it, who need access to the same sort of supports to be career ready and to be able to access economic mobility for themselves and their families.
Jan, I'm gonna borrow one more minute, and I'm gonna give each of you, if you want it, 15 seconds. What's the one thing we can do to take this conversation beyond those kids, the at-risk kids? What's the one thing that we've got to do to make sure all kids have an opportunity around career readiness? Julie, any thought?
It removes significant barriers to access. A lot of the stuff is very place-based. And how do we figure out an opportunity for those, not only in rural communities, but maybe for those without transportation? How do we get kids to jobs that are not just in their neighborhood,
Cool.
whether it's virtually or another way?
Awesome. Orrin, 15 seconds. What do we got to do?
Yeah, I think it's prioritizing career planning and just starting earlier. I'm really excited about the legislation that we've seen come down in the state of Delaware, so that we're beginning those activities no later than middle school. And I think as a final comment is saying that future ready is not what you are, future ready is what you work to become. We know that career development increases that academic mobility for all students, but more specifically on low-income and at-risk students to be exposed to a full range of economic opportunities in today's workforce economy.
All right, thanks. Amanda, 15 seconds. What do we got to do?
Yeah, I think we need to stop bifurcating the policy conversation around college readiness and career readiness. Let's make it the same thing. Let's make it readiness for success.
Awesome. Lisa, 15 seconds. What do we got to do?
Love that, Amanda. I think make it easier for all employers, large, medium, small, to be part of this conversation and to be part of the solution.
Awesome. Julie, Orrin, Amanda, Lisa, thank you very much for joining us today and for allowing me the opportunity to hang out with you guys. Jan, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Ron. As usual, it was a very calm panel you have moderated there. So thank you. And my thanks also to Amanda, Julie, Orrin, and Lisa. Awesome panel, really good. And I think just a quick, we put in the chat box, if you could all just put in what's the one word that sort of sums up today's discussions, the panels and all, that would be great. Just real quickly, because I know that, it's time, we've gone a little over time. These panels are so great. There's so much information. I want to remind you that the Coalition for Career Development Center is about bringing all the voices together. It is about sharing what is happening out there, what is working out there, what is available out there, and then where are the gaps and how do we work to fill in those gaps? And that's what we are trying to do to reach the goal of career readiness for all. So this has been phenomenal. We will be coming out with notes. This is just the start of the conversation. The next policy forum is on November 10th, and it's going to focus on work-based learning. And so, how do we put together and engage work-based learning? So look forward to some information on that soon. Thank you to everyone, to all of our panelists today, to all those of you who are attended this. Please send us your comments throughout this, because this session's over doesn't mean we're going to stop talking. So again, November 10th, we'll look forward to seeing you all as we talk about work-based learning. Thanks, everyone, and have a good day. Thank you.